Howdy folks, we're looking at Edge Magazine issue number 32. This one released in May 1996, discussing the future of interactive entertainment. And I don't actually recognize the game on the cover. It was to be released by Ocean. I know that it wasn't finally released, or I couldn't find any information about it. But this cover indicates a look into Ocean Software, a company that was very big in England in the 80s. The company's from Manchester, and then continued making licensed games like Batman, RoboCop. Well, those were good actually for the ZX Spectrum, but they made a lot of silly games, and I think by the mid-90s, then they were purchased by Infogram, who became Atari, and that was the last time we heard of them. The opening column, what was that about again? Oh yeah, that the price of the Saturn was going down, and that the competition was steep between Saturn and PlayStation. There's also a look at Konami, who weren't doing very well in the mid-90s. Okay, so like I said, the Saturn was cheaper all of a sudden, and but still the Sony PlayStation was selling better, even though the Saturn did get a boost in the early 1996. At the time, it wasn't quite clear which system had better games. I honestly think, I remember believing the Saturn had better games up until about 1996. So, yeah, but it was mostly the Sony PlayStation's marketing that made the difference. I need to scratch my head, sorry. Okay, so Nintendo 64 being delayed again. This time because of some other chips made by another company. And we see pictures of Turok. You see a lot of mist, and Edge is not impressed. They would be though. They would give the game a 9, and Turok 2 they would also give a 9, infamously. My voice is a bit broken because I had the flu last couple of days. Here we have Sega World. Apparently there were quite a couple of them. I had to do some research. There was also one in London, which they talk about. It's a big building full of arcade games. So it's a huge arcade. And you had those in the 90s. I've been to one in France, and also another one in London, which was not Sega World, but just another arcade, multiple levels. So yeah, playing Street Fighter there and X-Man. Sony has their own show in 1996, showing off some of their new games. This was in Japan, and Edge was invited. Not that many people were. Sega decides not to work with M2 after all because Sega wanted to use the technology exclusively. Alright. The bad press wasn't worth noting. Future magazine is looking for a CD-ROM editor. Yeah. Let's distribute magazine via CD. The C-bit or CE-bit, I don't know what you call it, is a computer conference. And what was the interesting thing again? Like it says, Apple was big at the time, probably showing off their PowerPC thing. Copland was this kind of OS of sort. I don't know. Things they we tend to forget. The Jaguar lowers its price to $49. So they're trying to get rid of that thing. Okay, this was fascinating. This thing you can actually still look up. It's called VRML, and it's about 3D web browsing. Yeah, so this is a software to make your internet experience more 3D. Which of course is silly because we just want to watch videos and read text on the web mostly. 3D's for games. Hey, here's Chris Crawford, and he talks about if you look at this, it's about penis envy, which is kind of stupid. I don't know what Chris is trying, but excuse me. He talks about how video games are trying to be like Hollywood, but that we should resort to actually what makes us different. And he says that Sid Meier is never going to become like Arnold Schwarzenegger, so we should look for the things that we are good ourselves. It wasn't a very interesting essay this time. Okay, this looks very 90s, this commercial for IBM. Apple also had commercials like this. So who's this hipster? Well, apparently his name is Tim Wright, and he made the other music for Wipeout. So you had the famous bands like Prodigy and Orbital on the Wipeout disc, but he made the other music, and that was apparently quite well received. And also, the American version of the game didn't have all those British artists, so more of his music was in the game. And I found that interesting. I thought they would be the same games, but, licensed music doesn't get to go to all the countries. What's this guy with the peep show? He worked for some company that was pretty big, actually. Oh, yeah, he works for Sony. And he used to work for, was it Codemasters? No, Acclaim. And he helped with the marketing of the Sony brand. And he said, yeah, I noticed how 17-year-olds, they want to live like 24-year-olds. So we're going to sell this system to 24-year-olds, And what do 24-year-old people do? Well, they go clubbing, of course. He wanted to sell the PlayStation as an accessory, not as a toy. Okay, Cranberry. You remember them? I didn't. And they were working on some game called QAD, but I don't think it was released. So it's some kind of 3D shooting flying game, I guess. So try looking that one up. I did. A lot of games I had to look up because they weren't released in this issue. Rave Racer, the third version of Ridge Racer on the PlayStation, and by then I had lost interest in the series. So apparently this is a different game than the original. Oh, here they're talking about how this game was going to be ported to the personal computer, and it would still require a Pentium 160 megahertz, which is 6 times as many. 6 times as much power as the PlayStation, but still you could play that game on the PC. Quake, this time showing this kind of pre-alpha version, which didn't even have enemies, I believe, but you can run around and shoot and try out some of the weapons, and it was all the hype at the time, and this was distributed on the internet. I think I also did this. I had a friend who had a 200 megahertz computer, and we tried out a lot of games, including Quake, thanks to the internet. And Edge is not that impressed. It would, though, make a big difference in the computing. I never liked Quake 1 that much. I don't think I even beat it. I did like all the mods for it, and I still kind of wish that some of the things I saw in some of the mods were incorporated in games, like grappling hooks and gravity portals and stuff. Quake 1 was also the first game which let me play against computer-controlled enemies, and that was a lot of fun. We were just waiting our turn to play against the computer. So yeah, I never understood why they made the game look so brown. I mean, Hexen looks so much better. Okay, Hexen 2, I mean. Alright, International Track and Field. I never understood why the 1983 version was so popular in the arcades. Here's the 1997 version, 1996. Also made by Konami, so you get the Bush buttons and Bush hash buttons to play silly mini games. Dark Savior, the sequel to Landstalker. And from what I understand, it's not that good. So play Landstalker on the Genesis. The Pandora Directive. I think this is the third or fourth Tex Murphy game. That's his name, right? I never liked his games because I couldn't stand the bad acting, and I've never been that big of a fan of click and carry adventures. I have enjoyed a couple of them. I love Maniac Mansion, the original, and I don't know, I've played some Leisure Suit Larry, and I almost beat Secret of Monkey Island. You know, I'll try some of them, but yeah, I've done enough puzzles in the genre. I'm not interested anymore, and the stories are never that good. Mario RPG. I think we saw this one earlier. Yeah, but I didn't like it that much at the time. I thought it was silly. It didn't have the aspects of role-playing games I liked, and it didn't have the aspects of Mario games I liked. So, but it was a quality product. I could see that. Zork Nemesis. This actually had fairly good reviews, even though I don't remember this game. The original Zork is one of the first text adventure games, and this is one with full motion video acting. Hyperblade. I don't think this one was released for the PC. Overblood. Geez, this one was released, but it got subpar reviews. It's kind of like Resident Evil, but not that good. And Wild Arms, one of the first quality role-playing games for the PlayStation. Not as good as Final Fantasy VII, sure enough, but I didn't get... Did I play it? I don't know. I thought it was all really standard stuff. I mean, it does have like a Wild Wild West theme to it, but other than that, not interesting at all. So here's a picture of what Photoshop can do. At the time, this was quite impressive, apparently. I still think it's quite nice. It's Rembrandt's painting, one of his most famous ones. And Edge now has, from issue 32 going on, they did this for way too long. They had what's called gallery, where they showed off pictures of CGI stills. So this has nothing to do with gameplay. We see games like Heart of Darkness and Zed, and I couldn't care less for this. They're not even that pretty. So here we have MDK. I don't know what this is. I feel like I should know it. Looks like Ridge Racer. Oh well. Okay, back issues. Here's Konami. Oh, here they're the good old days. Contra, Gradius. I don't recognize the top one. Thundercross, apparently. And the interview is very bland. Simply saying, yeah, we'll release our games and we'll make them, and we're still selling half the games on the 16-bit consoles. There's some talk of Suikoden. That would become a hit in the 90s. Also hinting about the new Castlevania game being more of an adventure game that you would have to think a little. If you ask me, you spend more time thinking in Castlevania 1 because of its deep, challenging level design. But nevertheless, I get what they mean. And I love Symphony of the Night. So ironically, their 2D games would continue to be the best. I don't know how Konami's doing these days. And they had Metal Gear Solid, of course. No mention of that here, though. Ocean, you probably recognize the logo. I cut them a bit short at the start of the video. They did make some good games for the Nintendo. I just can't come up with them at the moment. Also for the Super Nintendo, but yeah, they were kind of like Acclaim. They distributed other people's games, usually with a license, and some of them are pretty good, but none of them are classics. Okay, so they showed 3 games being made by Ocean by 3 different teams. And the first one is called Dawn of Darkness, which is a Doom clone, but it's supposed to be more horror themed. I couldn't find anything about the game online. This would be the cover game. What's it called again? Can I zoom in? HMS Carnage. This game was not released, so you get to play all these different tanks and the like, and shoot at each other with vehicles. And a game which would first be called Pandemonium, then it would be called, I don't know, something else. But it was never released, and it was like a click and carry adventure with a lot of full motion video featuring the Hanna-Barbera characters like Fred Flintstone and Scooby-Doo. never released. Here we go. Here are more pictures of HMS Carnage. So yeah, well, fancy models, but who cares about that? So look at 3 games and didn't become anything. Into the reviews. Night Warriors, Darkstalkers 2. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the PlayStation got Darkstalkers 1. The Saturn, which is being reviewed here, they got the second version of Darkstalkers, which was better. And then the third version of Darkstalkers was released for the PlayStation. And I got a sneeze. Excuse me. Okay, where was I? But by the time the third Darkstalkers was released, the Saturn wasn't doing very well, so that made sense. And this game gets an 8. Darkstalkers is basically Street Fighter with horror tropes, and it's a lot of fun. Some of the characters are totally crazy. I had a lot of fun watching the animations, and it played well. It was very aggressive. I think the game was actually better than Street Fighter Alpha gameplay-wise. You also had a lot of nifty combos. Okay, so Terra Nova is a very interesting game. Released mid-96 and it got a 9. Made by Looking Glass. And when you play it, it looks exactly like System Shock 1, except it's outside. And the interface is also kind of like it. Although walking and shooting around is a bit easier, if I recall correctly. It's very fast. There's a lot of shooting going on, and you choose your own squads, and there are a lot of different objectives, and it's a fairly intelligent shooting game, and it looked fantastic even though it had a low resolution. It was a commercial flop though, unfortunately. I think it could have done so much better. The game is also full of really cheeky full motion video. So check out the game on YouTube. It's fascinating. Civilization 2 also getting a 9. Yeah, so Civilization 1, but with especially more sound. I remember that being a big difference. Civilization 1 was kind of a muted affair. Part 2 had all this CD quality sound, and of course it was isometric, which I didn't really like. But ironically, the thing I liked most of all about Civilization 2 is that you had engineers, which were basically settlers who could do their thing twice as fast. Because in Civilization 1 you were still using settlers in 1950 to irrigate land, which was silly. So then they made engineers in this game. That made I was never much for playing Civilization against other people. I was more about just creating your own country or civilization and making it nice so everybody's happy. And a big part of that is turning the land into fertile, irrigated land and making roads. And so I spent a lot of time in Civilization 1, 2, and 3 simply having the settlers go to work, or the engineers. And in Civilization 3, they actually had workers who would do that stuff instead of the settlers, so that was really nice. Yeah, that might sound really silly, but to me that's a big deal. And then I got Part 4, and by then the AI was good enough that I could just let the settlers do their own thing, or the workers. And then there was Civilization Revolution. I never looked back. I never liked 5 or 6 because the Revolution is so streamlined, and you don't have to irrigate anything. You just press a button, it's done. Okay, so Spycraft, a fairly intelligent spy game where you have to look into clues and stuff. I talked about this a bit earlier. You can play it on Steam apparently for only about $5. There are videos which are bad quality. But other than that, a very intelligent game for its time. I bet Chris Crawford would have liked it. Okay, there's Soul Edge. This was a big one. At the time, it played a lot like Virtua Fighter. There were still, of course, some characters like Rockin'. Not Ivy. Ivy was Soul Calibur. Song Mina, who had longer weapons, but most of the time this game played like Virtua Fighter, and I was fine with that because I always thought Virtua Fighter played much better than Tekken until about Tekken. I like Tekken 4, but that's another discussion. And yeah, there's an interview with the maker, and they're quite proud of what they've made. They really like it, and it would be released as Soul Blade on the PlayStation. Okay, Williams Arcade's greatest hits, like Joust. Joust is great. And Robotron, another great title. Defender. What else do you want? Sinistar, of course. And Bubbles. Oh yeah, Bubbles. So Atari retro games. I can't even see them. What is this? Oh, Breakout. Who wants to play that? Missile Command. Apparently a remix of some sort. New graphics. And oh yeah, Rally X with new graphics. Dig Dug with new graphics. Okay, so Namco Collection 2 has Pac-Man with new graphics. What's the point of that? And the advertisements for all the British companies. This is freaky. Why would you advertise your company with a picture like that? Play to win. Stop playing games. Work for Elite. Also like a ZX Spectrum kind of company. Criterion. This is like a who's who of which companies were still alive in Britain in the mid-90s. There's no Take-Two yet, though, yet. We do, of course, have... This is Psygnosis, right? I don't see Psygnosis listed anywhere. Personal Reflections, apparently. Trying to look like they're Psygnosis. Okay. And the letters. Somebody disappointed about the death of the games for the 32-bit systems. Well, no, he was totally right. They were mostly arcade ports. Somebody complained that Miyamoto's getting too much credit. He's not even the director of the games. He mentioned some other people who were apparently the director. I don't know how it works in video games, especially when it comes to Japanese games. You could look at this. You could look at the credits, and I have no idea what the difference is between an executive producer and a director when it comes to a game. And of course, they're programmers. I get what they do. I don't know how much influence they have. But yeah, of course, Miyamoto's an important guy. I mean, that's why he keeps getting to be part of it. Of course, the new Zelda he didn't work on, and that's the best one since A Link to the Past. So there you have it. Yeah, more complaints about the death of games for the new generations, but Final Fantasy VII is coming. So this guy's even more old school, saying, yeah, I miss the playability of The Great Escape for the Spectrum, and a game called The Detective for the Commodore 64. I'm not familiar with that one. And he talks about how, what's up with the AI? The graphics keep getting better, but the AI is still pretty much the same. And I loved it how in The Great Escape, characters were just doing their own thing. Well, you should play Dwarf Fortress then, I guess. I have to cough again. Alright. What's this? Somebody complaining about how Daytona was rushed. And... somebody saying Edge is biased towards PlayStation, which they really weren't. And this last letter, I don't remember. Okay. There's no Q&A anymore. Thank goodness. And there's a preview for next month. Psygnosis. At the time, the biggest PlayStation developer with Wipeout and Destruction Derby. What else could you want? A couple other mediocre games, actually. In Liverpool. And a look at Murder Death Kill. MDK. I understand that the actual name is MDK stands for the 3 characters in the game. But that's whatever. Okay. So next time we'll see each other at the 3rd of May 1996. And this was Edge Magazine issue. Let's look at the pictures. 32. And I wonder when we'll get the new layout change, because this is still the original one. Last time I talked about how Edge will look different thanks to the influence of new media. And, well, it's coming. We'll see you then.